Hi, it's Anne. Thanks for stopping by. I made a fun discovery this past week, and I thought you might enjoy knowing about it because it could be something that you might like to try in your craft room as well. We all know the distress ink, right? We use this, we get our daubers on it, and we ink our edges to make those wonderful, yummy, distressed aged edges and areas in our papers. And we love this stuff. Eventually the ink pads wear out. Now, before we get to the point where we consider them worn out, of course, you can spritz them with a little water. That will reactivate some of the ink that's in there. You can use re-inkers to add more ink. For me, eventually, and maybe it's just the muscle that I put into using my blending tool. Eventually the pad actually begins to wear out, and lots of little fibers and things get into the ink that I pull out. So eventually, after many months, I think I can keep one of these going probably close to a year, even using it as frequently as I do. Eventually, I have to face the fact it has reached the end of its life. I thank it for its fine service, and I lay it to rest. I reached that point with this one this past week. This is the Distress ink and not the Distress oxide. But I thought maybe, this ink pad doesn't owe me anything, right? I've been keeping it going and limping along for quite a long while. But I thought, what if I could get some more ink out of it by soaking it? And I pulled out my trusty little dishpan. This is from our camping gear that is off season right now. And I took this Distress ink pad and I put it face down, and I put some hot water in there. And I thought, I'm just going to see what happens. I didn't put a whole lot in. I put maybe 2 cups of water, maybe not even that much, into this pan. And I just let it soak for a while. Well, do you want to see what came out? I pulled the solution, the water was really nice and rich and inky. I still have some of it, despite my trying to clean my fingernails. So if you do this, don't do it right before you go to tea at Buckingham Palace or anything like that. That wasn't going to happen around here, let me tell you. I dipped a bunch of copy paper in it, just like I do when I'm going to be coffee dyeing paper. But I thought, I'm just going to take this paper and see if I can get a distressed look. The paper itself, it looked like I just put it in coffee. I thought, okay, it's going to look just like coffee dyed paper. That's fine. Well, let me show you what happened once it dried. I don't know how well you can see this, but there's lots of purple in the dried area. I just let it, I dipped it in, put it on a flat surface, and then stacked the pages up to sit on top of one another, which is, again, the same process I do, one of the processes that I use for coffee dyeing. And it pooled in some areas, and the areas where it pooled, I got some really interesting color variations. There's a little bit of a brown cast. It certainly looks aged and distressed. But there's this purple, there's this yellow. And again, this isn't the oxide ink. This is just, the bog standard distress ink. But there must be different colors. It's not one of the primary colors, so obviously it has some other colors in it, but there must be some red and blue in there, which kind of converge to make this purple. There's some yellow that crept out. And I'm just going to show you a few of the pages that I think once I fold them and put them into a signature, I think they're going to make really nice background pages in a junk journal. And this is just from this ink that was otherwise going to be thrown away. I'll just show you a few others. This one really had a pooled area, and that that purple just really showed out. This one looks kind of space agey. They're pretty much the same. They the same effect. There's some crinkling to them. They're so nice and smooth that I think these would be easy to write on. for a writing journal, and they would be fine and interesting to paste other things on too. So out of that little batch, you know, I got quite a few. I did put the dishpan in a deep sink that's in my laundry room that's just sort of behind me here, here in my basement, and I needed to mop up a little bit, and so I took a piece of plain white muslin and mopped up, and look at this wonderful dyeing that I got on this little piece of white muslin. So that's going to be nice for some journal projects. Then I did what I often do with coffee dyeing as well. I took what was left in the dishpan, and I took an old funnel, and I poured the excess into a little spray bottle. And then I took out another stack of papers, and in between each stack, I put just one of my stencils and sprayed it and left it overnight to dry. And look at these interesting looks that I got. This one a lot more subtle. Aren't these going to be fun to use? We could use them as backgrounds for pockets. We could use them for all kinds of things. So I thought you might be interested in seeing how literally a worn out ink pad could yield a lot of good dye that was very easy to use, taking plain white paper to something spectacular, the same way we coffee dye. Now, I say that, well, it's the same way I coffee dye. Many people put their coffee dyed things into the oven. I won't do that. That process is fraught for me. I have much better luck just spraying and dipping and leaving them in stacks to dry overnight. I put them in an old sink, and then I scrub the sink afterward, and everything is fine. I want to show you one other way that I treated the paper, because I wanted to see if I could get some different effects. And I think you can see what I did here. I took some sheets of coffee paper, or copy paper, and I just crumpled them up. And then I kind of dipped them into that inky solution. And let's just open these up. I let them dry. They're probably going to tear a little bit, but we'll just see. I will tell you, I have done one already, so I have a little bit of a heads up, a little bit of a spoiler on how this is going to work. So kind of like tie-dye, the dye isn't going to get to everything. But look how that solution clings to the crumples in that paper. There's still a fair amount of white there, so I will use this in a journal where I am okay with that, or else I'll do something else with it. But look at these little edges where the folds come up. There's just something special that happens there with this ink. And one thing, of course, that's different, because this is ink and not coffee, it doesn't smell like coffee. I'm a coffee drinker. I love the smell of coffee. Paper that smells like coffee does not bother me, and the smell does dissipate over time. Let's just unfold another one. This one is actually still just a little bit damp. But if you're sensitive to the coffee smell, or if that is something you absolutely do not want to have in your journal, you might consider this with an old ink pad. I would imagine that the process could work pretty well with any kind of ink pad, but the one that I happen to have worn out this week was Distress ink. And oh boy, this one is really purpling. Now I realize, maybe there's some mineral content in my water here. We tend to have pretty pure, we're lucky to have very pure, clean water here in Portland. But every region has some sort of mineral content in their water. So there could be some sort of reaction that my particular water had with the dye. Ooh, this is interesting. It looks kind of like an egg yolk in the middle there. An egg yolk or a sunrise or sunset. Isn't that interesting? Now, this is slightly damp, but I don't think that darkness has to do with the dampness. I think it's probably going to dry looking somewhat like that. That is grungy and funny looking and interesting. And again, this is one thing that I love about doing any kind of mixed media. for a junk journal project, you never know how they're going to turn out. Those little inks just find their way in there. They do what they're going to do. You have to kind of just let go and sit back and admire the results, because they're going to be something different every single time. I find that truly spectacular, and honestly, it could not have been easier. Let's open up one more. This is one that's going to have more white on it. I'm kind of impressed with how they're not tearing. The one that I did earlier did have some tearing, but I was excited to see what was on there, and it was perhaps more damp than it might have been. Now these I would use as a background or pasted onto something. There's a lovely texture to them, but I think it might be challenging to actually write and journal on this texture. But there's plenty of different ways that we use paper. Let's look at one more. And then we're going to try a little project. Pretty crispy edges. And because this is ink, you could put all kinds of additional mixed media on here. You could stamp on top of it, and it would take to this surface really well. It's not a plasticized surface like when you use acrylic paints or even gel prints. And sometimes the coffee, when it pools in certain areas, it can have a bit of a sheen to it as well. So maybe doesn't take to the stamping as well in some areas as I think this would. That looks like a Rorschach test there, doesn't it? What do you see? Let's do a little bit of a project here, and then I have one more experiment I'm going to try. This is the piece that I unfolded earlier, and you can see because it was a little bit damp, it didn't take to the unfolding process as well as the ones that I did just now. I have. Because the purple came out so much in this, I was thinking that I would maybe make a little bit of a journal cover that had, kind of celebrated the color purple. I have very little purple in my in my crafting life, but I'm thinking maybe I need to try purple a little bit more. This purple really kind of wants to be. So let's just do a little bit of a journal cover. I was thinking I could try kind of an unusual 6x6 journal, but I'm feeling like I want to be a little more on the traditional side here. So let's get out the big scissors. And I don't mind having some of that torn part be on this cover. Because we can kind of patch it together. Is there much difference between the front and the back? There is difference, but I'm not going to fuss over which one I like better. I don't want them to feel bad. I want them to think I love them all the same. Where is something I can glue on top of? Seem to have misplaced. Oh, there we go. My glue books. Here's one. Knitting magazine. Knitting catalog. And I'm thinking that the glue stick will be just fine here. We're not going to assemble the entire journal. We're just going to put part of the front together here and see how that works, because I haven't done this yet. I may have just changed the side that's going to be visible, but I don't care. They're so close together that it's not a huge decision for me. out a glue spreader and gently try to spread this out. I want that texture to still be part of the experience that we have in looking at this journal cover. But I do want to flatten out the paper so that it's adhering to that sticky surface as much as possible. And let me trim off a little bit here and a little bit here. And then we'll nip off those corners. Without much ceremony. And let's glue these down. Now this is just the front. What I will do when I go to assemble this whole journal is I'll make another piece for the back that'll be just like this out of one of the other pages. And then I like to stitch on my sewing machine a spine that holds the front and back together. And I usually cover those with fabric, but not always. Haven't thought far enough ahead to see how I want to complete this. I thought I'd just do the front here today. As I continue my case of the sticky fingers. That looks like a proper journal front, does it not? Now I'm going to go into my new distress ink, the new kid in town, and ink those edges. This side is going to be covered with the fabric, so I'm not going to bother to ink there. There we go. And I brought out a couple of journal fronts. Just a second, I want this on something else. And I think I'm going to do a video just on making these little journal toppers. I've been building up my stash of little things to put on the front of a journal. This is one, obviously it's too big for this one, but at whatever point I make a little 6 foot, that'd be a journal, 6-inch square journal. This little thing that just says unexpected, I think might be cute, an unexpected shape. And maybe this is something where we write unexpected things about life. But see, this could be really nice there with those little purple tones. So to make the proportions correct for this journal cover that we're doing, I think this was 6 by 8. Yeah, 6 by 8. And I think we're just going to go with Keep Life Simple. I really like that. I like the white here because this is going to be probably a dark brown fabric. So let me go ahead and get this affixed down here. These toppers, I have almost a formula that I use in putting them together, and I'll do a video about those one of these days. It's very, very handy to have a stash of these around, but I usually do a background of corrugated cardboard, a little card with some book page, some sort of a phrase that was clipped out of I think it was from a dog food ad in a magazine, and a few other elements that make it kind of a little bit of a cluster, but a flat one. And because Fabri-Tac, or 3-in-1 glue, all the same stuff, is the strongest of our glues. At least the glues that I have. I think there is a stronger sort out there. I love this. Now, I say I love it, and then now I want to fuss with it a little bit. I think I'm going to add a little gold. Wouldn't that be kind of fun? Maybe I'll do a little gold along this, this edge right there with the brown. And I say that only because I had my gold acrylic marker sitting out here from another project. That might not be visible on camera, but I can see a little bit of the gleam. I don't want to put too much because I want to be true to our theme here, keeping life simple. Not lots of flashy gold, just a little touch. I'll make my other piece here, and then inside I can use, I'll have to cut them down to size, but I can use a lot of my my stenciled or my other papers that I dyed using this leftover ink. So this is super fun, and how nice to just not throw it away. I mean, really, it did not owe me anything. I got a lot of use out of that, reinvigorated it as frequently as possible. It was just time to set it aside. Now, the one last little experiment I wanted to do with you before we close this quick little video is to get out my camping dish pan again. Set this aside because I don't want to splash on it. And get out again. This is the one that has given us so much already. But do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can get another batch out of here. And I don't know that the water needs to be hot, but I did just boil this in a tea kettle right here by my desk, just to see if there's any ink left. And you can see that there still is some coming out. I probably should have put a little less water in there because this might be a little too diluted, but there's still some ink in there. I think this little guy is going to keep on giving at least a little bit, and better that it do its giving here than in the landfill, I say. So there might be another round of inked papers in my future. This is just going to simmer over here. If it looks like it's not worth using, and I won't try to force mount more out of it than I need to. But I hope you enjoyed this fun little video showing some kind of kooky ways that we can preserve our what appear to be a completely used up ink pad. Don't give up on them too soon. And you know what? You can save this top, and this is a great place to sort of mix some acrylic paints in, mix some watercolor. You can use that as a little bit of a mixed media surface too. I hope you enjoyed this, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.